What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rapper Fabolous. Basically, this project is called From Nothing to Something, and it came out in the late spring of 2007. The thing about this particular project is this at the time was seen as one of Fabolous's biggest albums. It managed to go gold, which is a pretty good pitch. Sold 500,000 copies as far as that particularly happened with it. Had the most multiple singles that Fabolous has normally gotten off an album. I mean, Street Dreams from 2003 did a pretty good job back in the summer of 2003 with songs like Into You and some of those type ones, and like I Can't Let You Go or some of those type pitches. But Fabulous was always a cat that managed to get like a top 30 single on each of his albums, and sometimes he would get at least two. But this particular album had like three hit singles on there and at least a fourth attempted single. It was a pretty good pitch. Fabulous was a pretty good look in like the mid late 2000s as far as that pitch kind of particularly happened with it. Once again, he had multiple hits off most of his albums as far as that particular kind of went. But this is one that particularly was one of the most popular ones. For the most part, Fabolous was not a full blown cat that would get like a classic album. I definitely feel like Street Dreams was pretty damn good. Real Talk from 2004 was pretty damn good. This one is not that good. It's actually kind of rather subpar as far as that pitch kind of happens with that. I feel like Loso's Way is a little bit better as well as far as some of those pitches kind of happen, but this does have some singles on here that are just real gems. This is some of his best performing singles. So the concept of it, despite the underwhelmingness of this particular product, I would still recommend it here just because there's three hit singles that have a lot of appeal in this overall ringtone ready type hits as far as that pitch goes for like late 2000s type fair. So it's a good concept. There's a lot of hook artists on here. Akon's on here, Neo's on here, T-Pain's on here, Jermaine Dupri, Rihanna's on here, some of those type folks. Junior Reed from like the game's One Blood song are on here in terms of just having some stellar hooks. Maybe not stellar hooks from every single artist, but at least enough to be able to say that it has the consolidation of just having some radio snap. It at least attempts it. This at least have to switch locations here, but it at least attempts to be able to have like some radio ready airplay as far as that pitch can have. There's a lot of hookiness on this particular product. Not all these hooks kind of work in particular. And like I said, this is a relatively limp and kind of subpar project, but at least the concept, it does have some of Fabulous's best performing singles. So it's definitely an album that you still at least want to check out. It's probably going to leave more folks hungry than probably would be more expected. It's kind of an album nowadays that I've noticed doesn't have like a ton of Spotify real popularity. Fabulous was kind of a cat that burnt out before Spotify really blew up as far as that pitch. He kind of missed that particular trend and era by like 3 or 4 years, I'd have to say in particular. But I would still have to say the concept of this particular album has some late 2000s type singles on here that just have a lot of snap. Folks like Jeezy, T-Pain, Neo, some of those type folks that were just popular in like the mid late 2000s as far as that pitch kind of happens with that. Fabulous really adapted to the trends. All the singles off this particular project have songs that were not necessarily like more East Coast sounding type ones. The only song that really had like some typical kind of East Coast snap of circa like the mid late 2000s was just Return of the Hustle, which was the worst performing single out of the four singles on here. But I would have to say, just in terms of the concept, it is just too bad because I look after the concept behind it. This is around the time when Jay-Z came. This is around the time when Jay-Z came back into the spotlight with his comeback album Kingdom Come. As far as that pitch can happen, so it's kind of where East Coast was coming back. The Clips had a pretty hit album that got some rave reviews from folks like Double XL and pitches like that. So the Clips, Jay-Z, some of those type folks. There were some other type ones. Fabolous was kind of on his comeback. Busta Rhymes was kind of on his comeback around this time. So there was some folks in like the East Coast as far as that pitch kind of particularly happened. Jim Jones is pretty large, but I just would have to say it's just kind of the concept. Just unfortunate that this album was kind of a dud because I do feel like Fabulous at least adapted and had some clever singles like he always does off of his albums. It's just kind of the concept. The rest of the album just really did not deliver. And it's just kind of the thing for the most part is to run through some of these ones, which we'll get to in a moment. I'm going to talk about the singles on here, but then just to kind of say after that, there's really the vast majority of this particular project, apart from like the three singles that I do recommend out of the four on here, there's really only one or two other songs that there's really only about two other songs on this particular project out of 16 songs, including the Spotify bonus song or the iTunes bonus song that I recommend just within that fashion. So it's just kind of constant. Really not going to get that rave score whatsoever, I'd have to say. But we'll go ahead and talk about, and the reason why that's disappointing is just because Fabulous is like a clever and witty lyricist as far as that pitch goes. He's kind of on par with folks. He may not be quite Jay-Z and Lil Wayne type category, but he's definitely a face card within that relative territory. If Lil Wayne and Jay-Z would be like King or Joker type territory, I'd probably say that Fabulous would be like at least a Jack or something like that to be able to say he's definitely would be a face card to be able to play in terms of like saying some of that lyricism. It's just kind of the concept about it, but this album really does not showcase that whatsoever. But yeah, I would have to say, so the first single is Diamonds. This is a pretty good pitch. This has Jeezy on here to back him up, and he's also kind of on the hook on here. This is definitely a Southern Fried type one to kind of get, and I do appreciate this concept. There need to be way more songs like this. It's like a glaring kind of nightclub bounce of a song, I would have to say. This is like a glaring kind of nightclub bounce of a song, I would have to say. This album needed way more songs like this, like I was saying before. Definitely something that needed just a few more hits within this particular category. And this is definitely Fabolous on like some Southern swag type tip, I would have to say in particular. So it's definitely a Southern pride type one. It's really something that Jeezy would have done. Now, Jeezy kind of featured Fabolous, or on this, I want to say that there was like another song that was either on like Real Talk or something like that. Jeezy and Fabolous had done a song in the past, which was a pretty good pitch. I think it was, Jeezy fucked Fabolous fucked with Jeezy back in 2004 before he had dropped an album. So Jeezy kind of returned the favor when he started to blow up more big time. This is when Jeezy was in his kind of complete prime. So he kind of helped Fabolous out with this particular one. This is a good concept. In some cases, some folks might think that this is just a Jeezy song just because it has that particular type of appeal. It's kind of a glitzy type one, but it's just kind of I feel like this is somewhat of like a generic Southern beat. I look after the concept that it's kind of similar to like what Fat Joe did with Make It Rain around that particular time, where he switched to Southpaw and tried to find like a Southern rap type tangent to kind of get on. It's a good concept to kind of see that, but compared to like a typical kind of one that you would have gotten from like Lil Wayne or something like that. I mean, I like the concept of Fat Joe doing it. I like the concept of Fat Joe kind of doing that, and I like the concept of like Fabolous particularly doing like a Southern pride type one. But just when you look after certain ones on here, this is, I feel like this particular song stands out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the project, because most of the productions on this particular album don't have the glitz and overall just glaring kind of glamour of this particular. This is definitely one that feels like you smoke several swishers and pitches like that, and you're just pretty glazed in a nightclubs and pitches like that. Just a real nice dance and twerk type tune to get from the ladies as far as that pitching goes. This real Southern pride hooky type one. Jeezy really not Jeezy really nails his verse. Fabolous really has some good Southern swag on here. It's just a good concept. He does some good jobs with that. This is the sort of song. I mean, this is why it was surprising that Fabolous didn't want to be in more songs. This is kind of why it's surprising that Fabolous didn't want to be in more songs like this, because he definitely could have eradicated more songs just within this relative pitch. I'd say this is just one of a kind type song on this particular product. Definitely, like I said, there need to be more of these, but there just isn't. Most of these songs on here, we'll get to that, but that's just kind of the concept. So the second single on here is Return to the Hustle. This is a song I don't recommend. I'd have to say it has Swizz beats on here, which is a pretty good pitch. If you do like the mixtape kind of dedication by Lil Wayne type fanfare, as far as that pitch happens, the more Don Cannon, DJ Drama type fare of like a more brassy kind of bravado type one that just feels like an East Coast kind of triumphant type one that you would have got. This kind of like bubble music by Cameron, some of those type pitches, just a real 70s sample type one, just has that relative pitch, just a brassy kind of Broadway type tune. I mean, normally I would like this sort of fanfare with these particular type tunes when it's on like a mixtape format, like when Lil Wayne and some of those folks, when Jeezy and Lil Wayne, some of those type folks do it, it's a little bit more affable. But this one in particular just didn't really have the snap that it necessarily kind of needed. It was kind of, I mean, it was a jazzy type one just within the affability behind it, but it just really was not one I would too oftenly listen to. I mean, I would feel like it's at least it could almost be an almost song, but I just look after, I think more times to say how many times out of 10 or how many times out of 20 I would listen to the song. It's really not popular enough to really say that I would recommend the song. I just feel like for the most part, probably 14, 15, 16 times out of 20, I'd probably skip this song in terms of that, like the aspect of when it were to come up in like a shuffle or something like that. This would not be too common. This would, I'd say, it's just, I mean, it is kind of an outing song. It is kind of a Broadway, just New York City stepped in as far as that pitch can go. It's definitely a big city type song to kind of get. And I do like these Swizz Beats type ones to kind of have in like a relative sense, but it just didn't. The production fare, I feel like Lil Wayne and Jeezy just nailed some of those type ones on their mixtapes a little bit better. But which is surprising that Fabolous, being from New York and the East Coast and Brooklyn, was not able to nail a tune like this better. But that's just kind of the concept. Make Me Better is the third single. This is definitely one of Fabolous's biggest songs around this time. This is the most popular song according to Spotify. This is like a woozing kind of endearing ladies tune. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a superb neo hook that this song particularly kind of gives. Definitely appreciate the concept of that. It's like a basic bitch kind of bop, I would have to say, and it's just a good day activity gem, I would definitely feel like. This is just standard day out in fair with the Chicas as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. Just a good summer romp as far as that pitch can go. It's just standard day activity pitch, just like that. This real smooth touch song. Neo really nails this one. This is when folks really started fucking with Neo on some of these hooks and really getting towards it. Fabolous and Neo are just a classic team up as far as that pitch kind of particularly goes. I want to say they had another song like She Got Her Own and some of those type ones. So definitely look for some of these Fabolous and Neo type team ups. They had a series of them. Most of them are pretty excellent, I'd have to say. This is one of the initial type ones and it works extremely well. This was the top 10 single in like the Billboard 100. So this was like the This was the album seller of this particular project as far as that pitching goes. It's just too bad that there weren't more hits like this for the most part either. And then the fourth single was Baby Don't Go with T-Pain and Jermaine Dupri on the feature. I'd have to say this is a very overlooked type song. Definitely appreciate this one quite a bit. This is a song I really fucked with back in the day. It's like a fantastic kind of T-Pain hook and feature, I would have to say in particular. This song is just an electric and quality radio snap that this song particularly kind of has, and this is just an overlook. This song is just an overlooked single nowadays, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty dope concept. Get this one. This is another, like, I want to say top 25 or top 30 single. This one may not have hit like top 10 like Make Me Better. The song may not have hit the top 10 like Make Me Better, but it was definitely a pretty nice one. It was an affable type one that you would be able to hear on the radio in terms of like the relative pitch. It was just a great follow-up type single, and this was like a good 1-2 punch for Fabolous around this particular time, because for the most part, minus like the Street Dreams album, he didn't really get multiple kind of singles that would just chart that affably. And Diamonds was like a top 85 single. That one didn't chart as heavily. That was more of like a buzz single, but it worked relatively well. It was at least a good kickoff for the album. But the thing about Baby Don't Go is, once again, Wikipedia continues to kind of screw over some of these type ones that were singles from like mid-late 2007, saying that they came out earlier, just in a different time period than they actually did. I remember Baby Don't Go being released as a single in like June, July of 2007 rather than late May. It's just kind of the concept. I kind of feel like the affability behind some of these is just kind of differential. I want to say that Make Me Better was released as a single more in like June of 2007, and Baby Don't Go is more like July, August of 2007 as far as that pitch kind of happens. It's kind of the concept, but just kind of the concept. I mean, Wikipedia has been kind of amalgamating some of those type times. I've noticed that with like Young Jocks, Hustlenomics, and Boys in the Hood, some of those type ones, just kind of a minor complaint, but you just look after it. It's kind of being able to say, but I look after that particular pitch. That's the concept of this particular album as far as the singles kind of go. Me recommending at least 3 out of 4, and I would have to say, if you're more East Coast bound, I would definitely say I think the affability is just a very triumphant song. I'd have to say Return to the Hustle, so it kind of has some of that concept. If you're used to like 2000s East Coast bravado, this is definitely a very triumphant bravado type tune to kind of get that's good for some Broadway stepping. So you might enjoy that one more, but just the frequency of how often I listen to it is not that high. So there's 16 songs on this particular album according to Spotify as far as that pitch goes. The 16th song is the song Supa, which is a relative pitch behind. It's not a song I recommend, but I would have to say out of 16 songs, including the bonus iTunes song and Spotify bonus song Supa, I'd have to say I wound up recommending 5 out of 16. So that's really not that many. Like I said, it's less than like a third of the particular product I'd have to say in particular. I mean, the standard album, if you just buy this album on CD, it would only have 15 songs, so it would still be 5 out of 15, which is basically a third, 33% of the project, but I still don't recommend that many. So it's just kind of concept. But basically, the 5 out of 16 I recommend on here would be Diamonds, Make Me Better, Baby Don't Go, First Time, and Real Play Alike. So for the most part, Fabolous does not really deliver many hits off this particular product apart from the ladies songs. That he basically has 4 good hit ladies songs on here as far as that pitch goes. Just I've talked about 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and talk about First Time and Real Play Alike, but just to kind of say the only real hit song that has any sort of affability beyond like the rest of the project on this particular album is just Diamonds. I just would have to say in like a nightclub type sense, there's really not that many nightclub songs on here. I feel like Baby Don't Go has some good nightclub type snap and like a more kind of hip hop type sense and more good club bounce for the ladies, but for the most part, Make Me Better is a pretty nice affable type one. I would say First Time has a little bit of that, just in a more flirty type sense. But for the most part, if you're just looking for a nightclub kind of, if you're looking for like a nightclub type tune with like some glare about it, like that's just kind of for your pals and pitches like that to really smoke to. There's really not songs like that on here. But yeah, to talk about some of these, like First Time with Rihanna is a real nice one. This is like a smittenness and kind of bubbly summer haze for Chicas, I would have to say in particular. This is like a could have been a single. I would definitely have to say this would have been a nice choice to follow it up after Baby Don't Go, I'd have to say, especially considering how red hot Rihanna was around the time when she dropped Umbrella around this particular time in the spring and summer of 2007. I would definitely say Fabolous delivers a pretty good hit on this particular song. This has some good snap, but it's a real affable, flirty type one. Fabolous definitely handles these lady songs extremely well, I'd have to say. And it's just an overall good concept. So I do appreciate some of these. It's another stock hit for Fabolous. If he would have had more hits like this, just packed throughout the album in terms of not just lady songs, but just having more hits like Diamonds, another good affable nightclub snap, just with some decent kind of bounce about it, like Make Me Better, and some good hooks like some of those pitches that would have been ready to go. It kind of happens to be a thing, but Real Play Alike is another nice one. This has Lloyd on the hook, so this is another hook. Basically, all these songs on here have some R&B hook artists on there, minus Diamonds, which has Jeezy, which is not an R&B singer. But just to be able to say, Real Play Alike has Lloyd. This is another good, nice one. It's like a bleary kind of springtime ladies brunch music of a song I'd had to say in particular. Some good concepts for that. It's like definitely some balmy weather and just feel good times I'd had to say in particular as far as that would kind of go. And this is just like a hands full kind of day. It's definitely just kind of a busy day, hands full type stuff. Just pitches like that. Got a lot of stuff to do, not just one or two things. And pitches like that. Just taking ladies out and about and just having some good times. Just appreciating like the balmy type. Just appreciating like the balmy type weather pitches like that. Just enjoying the times, enjoying the sunlight, some of those type pitches. It can even be Waffle House type music, IHOP type music, some of those type pitches. Just kind of out and about, just standard activity. Just in some cases, just like a more morning and brunch time type version of wine and dine type romance as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. This butter smooth type song to really have it in particular. Lloyd was known for these type of songs back in the 2000s. Fabolous was known for these type of songs as well, so that's a pretty good pitch. Fabolous definitely had these cards laid out pretty well with some of these type ones, I'd have to say. Twisted was definitely good at these sorts of songs, but Fabolous was pretty good within that relative pitch as well. It's definitely a skill set. If anything, for this particular product, this is just has some secret batches of lady songs. I mean, obviously, there probably need to be a few more. I mean, I feel like if this album would have been that packed with that many lady songs, it probably would have. This would have been more of like an R&B album, but for the most part, you do get some good gems within that relative sense. Despite the fact that 5 out of 15 or 5 out of 16 is really not that quality, I still would have to say you do get at least 4 good lady songs to kind of have for some affable day afternoons and pitches like that, and the standard day activity with chicas. It's some good concepts and some good nightclub bounce within a relative sense. But talk about some of these ones I didn't appreciate on here and don't recommend. Like I was kind of disappointed with the song Brooklyn. That one just didn't nail it as well. That one kind of had like a clumsy type production on here, which is too bad because I had some comeback era Jay-Z on here, fresh off of his Kingdom Come type days. I'd have to say in particular, it was just one that didn't really nail it that well. It's kind of had like a production. It's kind of had a more subpar and kind of cumbersome type production on there that was just not definitive of like Jay-Z back on something that he should have been rapping over as full blown, I'd have to say. I'm the Man was just kind of a clumsy Southern Fried type one. It was kind of one that was trying to be a little bit like Diamonds, but just didn't deliver. Like I feel like the beat loop on I'm the Man was just not quite as quality as it probably needed to be. As some pitches like that. Jokes on You is just kind of a poor and clumsy Don Cannon type beat, which is kind of I like the concept of Fabolous at least trying to have some mixtape type fare on here on songs like Return to the Hustle and Jokes on You and some of those type ones, but they just didn't deliver as well as they needed to. Songs like Brooklyn, Jokes on You, Return to the Hustle, some of these East Coast type ones just did not have like the execution. These just really felt like C minus type productions as far as that pitch can goes. I just was questioning as to why Fabolous didn't have a better beat selection to really push like for an album that could have had a lot more snap. In terms of the production fare, this project just didn't really deliver in terms of something that could have pushed the project to really be banner as far as that pitch can happen. These were just ones. I mean, I feel like some of the more singles, lady songs, and radio snap and just Southern Fried type ones that were kind of more the album attractors and the ones that were kind of like the selling points were really the high points of this particular product. But this album really struggled with album cuts and just representing like the East Coast and like a highlight and just being able to have like some banner projects that could really showcase like New York and Brooklyn and some of those type places and just didn't really deliver. I feel like the song with Junior Reed was just kind of a poor type one. It was just not really one that really had much engaging listen for you. It's just one that didn't even have engaging listens from like the very 10 seconds, I'd have to say in particular. It's just one that was just not, just kind of a cumbersome type one, just the affability. I feel like the problem with Junior Reed is one of his definitive songs was One Blood, but it just felt like most people, kind of similar to like what happened with Movado, I just feel like most folks were just not able to showcase him in the same light as like the particular song that they found out about him. It just feels like for some reason Junior Reed was just not able to outdo One Blood as far as that pitch can go. So it's just kind of the concept. I mean, it was at least attempted. I like the concept of at least trying, but it just didn't really pull off as far as what it needed to. Same thing with Movado, but beyond like the G Unit Terminate on Site song, I'd have to say. The Akon song Change Up was kind of a disappointing type one. Akon produced this particular one, and this is kind of like a nightclub type bounce of a song, I'd have to say. It was just kind of a clumsy type approach, just overly dramatic and just kind of felt a little bit cheesy in terms of the aspect behind it. I mean, Akon was particularly on fire in early 2007, mid 2007, but I just feel like the concept of it, the chorus was just not as affable as what it needed to be. I feel like I realized that Fabolous had a lot of R&B singers on here doing like some ladies type songs and R&B bounce and nightclub bounce as far as that pitch can happen. So it might have been overkill to have kind of had Akon do it, but the concept of the song that they crafted on this particular product just didn't add up to much. It was not that presentable or overall enjoyable, I'd have to say. So that was just kind of a clumsy type one, which is unfortunate because usually the Akon songs get nailed pretty well, but that was just one that didn't. You know, there's just some ones on here that just had some clumsy overall affability. A lot of poor productions, just a lot of ones that just don't really stand out and just kind of had the concept of not really showcasing like Fabulous in the correct light or being able to showcase something that could have had some spark as far as being like a quality album cut or have much replayability that could build up that could build up the appeal of this particular album, I'd have to say. So it's just kind of the concept. So in terms of what I'm going to score this album, me recommending 5 songs out of 16 on this particular product, I'm going to go ahead and give this product like a 3.25 out of 10. I think that's about all the more I could really do with it. I feel like the concept, I would almost give it like a 3 out of 10. I realized that I think the concept about it in particular, just being able to say in some instances, the reason why is just because I don't know the manufacturer whether or not if you were to purchase this album digitally or on CD. I mean, if you get it off iTunes, you might get some other bonus songs, but just being able to say if you just get this on CD, there may only be 15 songs, and 5 out of 15 is at least a third. But yeah, I'll go ahead and give this album just because the songs that are good are relatively enjoyable, and there are 3 singles that are pretty enjoyable, and this is some of Fabulous's biggest hits, I'd have to say, and that's kind of the concept. I mean, the rest of the album is pretty piss poor, but I would have to say the singles that are good are pretty damn good. In addition to some extra ladies songs that are just great for some good southern in addition to a couple other songs that are just great for some social outings with ladies as far as that pitch kind of goes, and like some day fare and date activity and just brunch activity as far as that pitch kind of goes. So 3.25 score. In terms of the social score, I'll go ahead and give the social score like a 5 out of 10. I feel like the relative pitch behind it, there is some decent snap about some of this project. There are some ones that you might find with some bounce just about that particular type of appeal. There are some big guests on here. Pusha T's on here, Jay-Z's on here, Jeezy's on here, Rihanna's on here, Akon's on here, Lloyd's on here, T-Pain, all those particular type folks. Lots of big guests on here. This is kind of the fact that these songs just don't really showcase most of these stars in like the correct light. Some of these folks work more. I feel like the ringtone type songs, the more attention grabbing type ones, the ones that you would have thought would have been popular in 2007, work more for the most part. But if you're looking for more critic type appeal and say, oh, Jay-Z's on here, I'm going to go for that song, doesn't really have that appeal. Same thing with Pusha T. His song doesn't really deliver as much. This clumsy type productions and this pitches like that just don't overall have the bite and snap that really make for some ferocity as far as this album would kind of deliver. So there is some social affability, like for some good day fare and just overall activity with chicas as far as that pitch kind of happens. It's some good. I mean, it's not really like a commerce type project. I just look after just more standard day activity of just socializing out and about and just fraternized type music, just being within the commerce of it in particular, whether on foot or just in general. It's just kind of the concept of just not so much in motion as much as just the activity going on, just more kind of white noise, kind of background noise, and just pitches like that, or just affability, just being music kind of being in the air, just like mall music and pitches like that, just sort of stuff where you just would somehow just have it just bought, whether it's on stereo or just wherever it would be listened to, pitches like that. Just kind of some ambient type music for the most part. So 5 social. In terms of the future, I don't really know as much what Fabolous has been up to in recent times. I'd have to say is kind of the console. I know he's put out some projects in like at least the late 2010s. I'd have to say I know he at least dropped a project. I know he at least dropped a collaboration project with Jadakiss back in 2017, but I don't know what he's been up to since then. I'd have to say, but I do want to get to some more of these Fabolous albums, including like Street Dreams and some of those type ones, Los's Way, some of those type pitches. I'd have to say there are some other jams. Just because I gave this particular product like a 3.25 out of 10 does not mean Fabolous can't deliver and just doesn't know how to craft albums, because he does have some hits for the most part. It's just kind of the concept. This one's just really underhanded just within the pitch behind it. If I look after it, I would still recommend purchasing this particular product because the gems on here you definitely want to pick up. You don't want to miss out on these. I would kind of feel like it may be patchy as to whether or not you would want to just buy the songs digitally and just handpick the ones that you'd rather want. But just within the affability, it's good. Like I feel like in terms of picking something out for like a mixed CD or something like that, you'll definitely find more than 2 or 3 gems on here. But for the most part, this project is pretty underhat. But for the most part, this project is pretty subpar and underhanded, I'd have to say.